It stands for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
God, our divine spirit, creator of all there is and ever shall be, we ask you, our God, to protect our city workers, our residents. We ask you to protect our country. We ask you to grant our council the wisdom to make the proper decisions for the highest good of our city. We thank thee for all our blessings. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Miss Handel. Almost said shut.
Mayor Dale Massad.
Here.
Vice Mayor Terrence Rowe.
Here.
Councilwoman Nancy Britton.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman William Dittmer.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager Vincent Lupo.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. General public, I've got David Gray.
My name is Dave Gray, and while I no longer live in the city, I'm part of the leadership of the church that meets in the Infinity Center there on Ridge Road. I wanted to thank you folks for once again giving the churches in this area the opportunity to prove ourselves with the Easter egg hunt. As you have the flyer, bring the kids, bring the family, have a good time. We're going to try to make the secular folks feel as comfortable and welcome as the believers would be, and we'll do everything that we can. And if you want to show up and sort of rate us on how you'd prefer to see it done in the future, we'd be happy to hear from you. All right. And then every Wednesday we're meeting at the not the Lighthouse, but the Oasis Coffee House. And while you folks are doing a great job of running the physical problems, of taking care of the physical problem, we meet every Wednesday evening to try to deal with the spiritual aspect of it. And all the churches or not all the churches, but a lot of churches are getting together. And it's going to culminate on Palm Sunday, March 25th. It's the first time that the Greek Orthodox have been involved with us, and we're really, really happy to see that happen. We're having a good time hanging together, and you're quite welcome to be there too.
Now, are you a Christian? Christian denomination?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just thinking, the Greek Orthodox, aren't they the same as the Catholic, only without a pope? Basically?
That's about it, and they can get married, which makes them a lot friendlier. No, I
appreciate that. Just what,
That's hysterical.
in the future, like Einstein, I just want to learn how to think like God, because I can't figure all this out.
Well, it is an open book test, and if you just want to check it out, he left the instructions, so you can teach you to think just exactly like he does.
Okay.
You're welcome to.
Thank you,
very much.
sir. I now have Ms. Spalding.
You don't want to take me last? I have a list.
Oh, uh-oh. Started fast.
I'm going to ask for the help. Sandra Spalding, 8612 Green Street. First thing, I believe that council should have a little more time to read over contracts. Because I'm sitting out here, I know nothing about the contract. They look to me like they know a little bit more than I do. And that's my ESP going in there. So I feel they should have the contracts a little sooner, read them over, and really know what they're talking about, so they can in turn explain it to the people that are sitting in the audience and on television. Okay, that's one. Now we got two. Council hears us for 3 minutes. And I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. Hello. When people are here talking for 3 minutes, council sometimes takes part of that 3 minutes of their time, and they don't really get a problem solved. I feel that the council should put it on an agenda so that people can get an answer once and for all, and it could all be taken out and placed in the proper places. That's Joe. Now we got 3. I'm on time. I talk fast. When you come off of 19 on Bay Boulevard, there's an island there, a traffic island, which is standing up, and it takes a lot of room. Know which one I'm talking about? Between Hardee's and Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay.
You got that? That's pretty dangerous, because when that was first put up, there was very little traffic going back and forth on Bay Boulevard. It's really very narrow, and I see a lot of trucks that are trying to make that turn, and they're going up on the island. I think it's dangerous. I would like a study brought in on it, and maybe take it out. If you want to put something, put a narrow one. I still
You're good,
have
you're
time.
good. I'm just watching.
Yeah, don't just watch. Hello. Put a narrow, place a narrow one in, it'll be a little safer. And I would like to see something done about that and talked about, because I've seen a lot of big trucks making that turn, especially coming from the other side of 19, going north on 19, trying to make that turn down to Bay Boulevard.
Going north on 19, making a U-turn.
Hello. North on 19, you come here, you're gonna make a left down Bay Boulevard, no U-turn.
Right.
A left down Bay. They get very close to the island because it's very narrow. Does everybody understand where I'm talking about? Do you, dear, Mayor?
I do not
decide?
think, I think I know what you're talking about, but if you're going north, you would have to, is there a cut in the road? so you-
Yeah, there's a turn in the road.
Let her have some
No,
time.
no, I have to have time. He
I took her
interrupted
time,
me.
that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Finish.
You're making the turn in the road.
Right.
And it's a wide, coming off 19, it's wide and then it goes narrow. Well, that wide spot, the trucks are going over it and some of the cars are also. My feeling
Okay.
is it's dangerous, and an ounce of prevention sometimes worth a pound of cure. I'm finished now, thank you very much.
Okay, and Mr. Lupo was taking notes?
Yes, I was.
Yes.
Okay. Thomas Brown.
Thomas Brown, 7436 Candlelight Court. Allow me to say what I wasn't able to say in the 2 minutes that I was allowed to speak at the last council meeting. The city of Port Richey has an 8-page purchasing policy. On page 5, it is clearly stated that purchases of more than $10,000 require approval by the city council. The CRA board, when they meet as the CRA board, are approving expenditures of more than $10,000 without the required approval of the city council. The city council meets at only city council meetings, and there and only there can expenditures of more than $10,000 be approved. There is an appearance that the city is trying to sneak some money spending issues past the public by not discussing them and voting on them at a city council meeting. Here are 4 examples of expenditures that were made without the required city council approval. $18,000 to Perfect 10 fencing, $72,000 to biomass, $109,000 to Roberts Site Development, and $163,000 to Roberts Site Development. At the end of my February 27th speech, the city manager, who didn't get the point, went on and on about how the city needed the fence around the DMA site. I have never objected to the fence, only the way it was purchased without the approval of the city council as required by city policy. The city manager told me that the $18,000 had been discussed and approved. It was, but not by the mandated city council. The finance department paid the $18,000 when it had not met the requirements of the city purchasing policy. In the future, the city manager, the CRA board, the city council, and the finance department must abide by city purchasing policy. If you don't know that the city has a purchasing policy, you should get a copy from Jackie, our city clerk. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Brown, I've asked Ms. Martinez to take notes, and we will give you a explanation. If we're wrong, then we will be getting it right.
Okay, well, Page 5, city purchasing.
I understand that the policy, I believe that it was voted on in after that, but please give me an answer so he'll
It was
have it.
voted on at a CRA meeting.
That's what I want to find out. She'll give you a report.
Okay.
Okay. Any more? Calista Young.
Hi, Calista Young. I live at 7405 Candlelight, but I own Shark Bites at 5430 Bailey Drive. And I know last week Rob McCabe came in here and he had a complaint about our noise level. And I spoke with Captain on this, and also I had a Officer Babcock come in.
I'm sorry, is it Shark Bites, is
The
crab,
old-
what,
the
the
old-
old crab shack?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Yes, sir, it is. And I just want to make sure y'all understand, I'm trying to keep within everything and make everything right. So we went out and we did buy a decibel reader so that we can keep track of our
Thank
decibels and everything, and not trying to cause any trouble and trying to stay within the limits. And I know last week there also was a council person, I believe, that, okay, and she called and said that it was very good last weekend, nothing went over. But we didn't have this last weekend because it took a while to get in. Of course, you know, we had to have it shipped in. But we do have this, and with this weekend coming up, I know these bands this weekend do get loud, so we're gonna make sure we keep a check on them. And the officers that have come out whenever the bands have gotten loud have always been very respectful, very kind. And as soon as they have told us we've been over, we have lowered them immediately.
Okay.
And we're not trying to cause any trouble with anybody. We definitely want to keep it under the limit and keep everybody happy.
Well, you are good neighbors, and Ms. Britton?
I just want to make a couple comments.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, when Mr. McCabe came in, I wanted to come over there, the two of us, so we could talk with you, because that's how I wanted to handle it.
Yes, ma'am.
Versus having to call the police, and because it becomes a problem for the citizens having to constantly do that.
Yes.
They get more irritated over time, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I had talked to you once before on the phone when I had called and said, could you guys kind of keep the noise down? And you were very nice, and I told Mr. McCabe that, and I said, let's just go over there and talk to them. We didn't get the opportunity to talk to you, but we did talk to your husband, and he was wonderful, and explained to us that he was going to make some changes and whatnot. I don't know that Mr. McCabe was 100% sure at that point, but that weekend was wonderful, and it worked out really well. For us, I don't know about how it worked out for you guys, but you know, and then I called Mr. McCabe and said to him that, you know, I felt as though it worked out, and he said he thought the same thing, because he's coming from Newport Richey, I'm coming from Port Richey.
Right.
And basically, the biggest issue that we told Kent about was the, really the bass is overwhelming. I can
Coming
be,
off the water, I know it vibrates when it hits that water too, I think.
yeah, I can be in my, see, I'm just a stone's throw from you, I'm like over, if you come like toward south on the river and then come in front of Mallett's and cut across, my house is right there. And so I'm kind of in your backyard. But, you know, sometimes it's very difficult because we can have all the windows closed, and I can be in my bedroom with the television on, and I can still hear the music. That's kind of,
Annoying?
you know, I can't open my windows in the springtime and things like that. So,
Yes, ma'am.
so, but my whole reason for mentioning this is I just appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to work with us, because, you know, Hooters has been a very, very successful restaurant. And they're successful because they work with the neighborhood, and they don't have to have loud music. Matter of fact, it's kind of a blessing to go there because you can actually have a conversation with the person at the other side of the
Right.
table. Where a lot of times when the music's too loud, people won't come for that reason because they can't have a conversation. You go out to dinner and you go out for drinks to have a conversation with your friends,
Well,
you
when
know.
our servers are trying to take orders and stuff, off the subject a little bit, sorry, but when they're trying to take orders and they can't hear, we know it's too loud, so we ask them to turn it down. But somehow in this process, every time we ask them to turn it down, they're like, oh, we gotta turn it back down. So we know that they're turning it up as it goes, and unfortunately, us being in there, our ears, I don't know what it is, they tend to numb up some, if that's the right word to say.
Right,
I know that doesn't sound right, but, you know, you kinda
I
get
understand
used
what
to
you're
it, and
saying.
so all of a sudden, we don't realize how high it's gotten.
Right.
So,
right.
but now we know that we're gonna be going out and we are going to be checking it, and I apologize.
Yeah, well, and
really
that's
do.
fine. And I knew that we would be able to work with you, and so in the future, if I have an issue, I'll just call you directly.
I would appreciate it. As a matter of
Okay.
fact, I wouldn't mind giving you my personal number because the phone inside there is, I can't hear sometimes
Well,
with that
could
phone
you
there.
leave it with Jocelyn or one of
Okay,
the girls
I will
over
do that.
there?
All righty, thank you very
Thank
much.
you for
All right,
coming.
thank
I
Ms.
you.
Young,
appreciate that.
I wanted to say this. The bands somehow like to hear themselves, and they just keep clicking it
do.
up. And
And
I
that-
understand. I
because,
can't
yeah.
stand to go those places. The other thing, some good news for you and as well for the public. We have resurrected the bike and hike trail. Mr. Lupo's working on it. It's gonna come from Old Post down through the waterfront overlay, under the bridge, and across your place. If
Okay.
Mr. Matthews, we have one little piece of legal problem with land, as long as we can straighten that out. No, it isn't yours, but I wanted to make sure that it goes by your,
That would be awesome.
your restaurant, as opposed to having to go on the DOT all the way up. So
Somebody
we're
contact
working
me
on
and I'd
that,
love to work with y'all. That'd be
and
great.
we're having a pleasure having
right.
you. All we ask is that the owners work with us
I am
and
ready
respond.
lately.
And it's like
I'd
Nancy
love
said.
to, and and the officers have always been very respectful and very kind when they've come by, all right?
Thank you,
Ma-
ma'am.
Ma'am, Mayor, ma'am, may I ask you one question, please?
Yes, sir.
There was an accusation, kind of accusation that was made at one point in time that you were pre-notified before a police officer arrived at a location. To your recollection, has anything like that ever happened?
We're notified.
That the police were coming by the
No
police?
one's ever told us anything. I would have been nice, but no, sir. No, nobody's ever told us that anybody was coming ahead of
I
time.
wanted to make sure that everyone and all of our citizens understand about the integrity of our police department, and
No, sir.
and that the fact was absolutely malicious, a malicious statement.
Oh, no, sir, no one's ever told us that somebody's coming. Matter of fact, the only thing I've ever had was whenever Mr. McCabe was out there, I'll be honest, my people come in and say, hey, there's a police officer out there. I didn't even know him and Officer Babcock were out there till my girls came in and said, hey, we have a police officer out there. So I go out there to see, because I didn't know what they were out there for, or half the time when they're out there taking the measurements outside.
Certainly.
I don't know they're out there till someone sees a police car out there. So then I go out there to see if we're having a problem. So I go out there and say, is there a problem going on? Because if someone's breaking in or somebody's doing something they're not supposed to, I want to know about it, especially if it's on my
Certainly.
property.
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome, sir. Thank you.
I let it loose a bit, but this gentleman wanted to make a comment.
I-
Come to the podium,
I-
please.
at the
Come to the
risk of-
podium, come to the podium, please.
Excuse me. At the risk of elucidating the obvious, a lot of times it's not a volume problem, it's a frequency response problem. And if you've got the bass response turned up high, you're gonna drive that sound all the way across the river and down.
I don't
But if
want
you
to sound
turn
really
down the
stupid, but I
bass
have no idea.
response,
Okay.
you might not have to turn so much of the volume
So
down.
you're just talking, turn the bass down.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I got.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
sir.
All right.
If you want to leave your number with them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anyone else in the public like to speak? Seeing none, bring it to the city manager.
Mayor and council, first of all, I'd like to make sure that you're presented with a copy and update of all of the various projects that are ongoing. And I'd like to speak specifically to some of them. And if we could pass out the maps, and we've had prepared for you a consolidated map that Ms. Martinez is passing out that shows the number of the channels and associated street names. So this should help alleviate some of the confusion that our citizens are having by just simply saying channel 10, 12, 18, 1. And there's street names associated with those channels so that everyone can get a better idea with respect to exactly what we are talking about here at council when council members or members of the audience are talking about certain dredging issues. I'd like to inform council that our engineers, Dewberry, will have their plans and specs ready in approximately 2 weeks. We'll then review those plans for completeness and compliance, and then proceed to the bidding process. So we'll be going out to bids very shortly, hopefully, on channels 1 and 18. With respect to our bike and hike extensions, actually I will speak in two different parts. The mayor began to allude to a continuing effort that the city has had with respect to the bike and hike trail. Vice Mayor Rowe has been in different conversations even with the state and the state park people. Our staff has been working extremely diligently to come up with a way to complete the hike and bike trail underneath the bridge on 19. Our building department, Mr. Muse, has had very, very fruitful discussions with FDOT, and we are moving forward with FDOT so we can properly analyze and prepare for what we would hope would be the extension of the hike and bike trail underneath 19 and up into along that entire passage. Also, we have, as a second part of the hike and bike trail, we have ongoing discussions and inquiries concerning the extension of the bike and hike trail from a section at the end of Old Post alongside of Coons down to Brasher Park. We are working with the State of Florida's Bureau of Public Lands and Trust to possibly incorporate a passive extension to our bike and hike trail to include walkways and observation decks in a section that we attempted to negotiate with the state and the Bureau of Public Land Trust almost back in 2000. So it would be a significant extension of our bike and hike trail through that entire section with the incorporation of observation decks and walkways, because it'd be extremely passive, in a small parking area to allow parking specifically for that and to aid the bike and hike trail. So that also is ongoing.
Mr. President?
Sir?
Where's the money coming for this?
It would be part of a grant once we have determined the feasibility of the actions with the State of Florida's Bureau of Public Lands and Trust.
Well, is this from the drawing that was done several years ago? I believe Wade Trim did it. They charged us $100,000 out of back.
No, sir. Has nothing to do with that, sir.
Okay. Then my only complaints are going to be this: do not build anything that requires maintenance. It costs us money.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
I don't know what in this world can be constructed without some degree of maintenance, although the city has been lax in many maintenance issues in the past. But whatever will be constructed will be constructed.
Yeah. It just drives our, our public works further. And,
I assure you, whatever we construct will have longevity in mind.
Okay. Go forward.
Well, okay. Florida Design Consultants are our engineer of record working on Washington Street. Excuse me. The geotech report has been completed for Washington Street, and the information has been forwarded to our engineers for their review, analysis, and recommendations. And these are for the necessary changes to Washington Street, where everybody understands the dips and doodles in Washington Street. Also, Florida Design Consultants been working on the sidewalks on River Gulf and Grand Boulevard. We'll be meeting with our engineers to further develop the development of those plans and specs for the placing of the new sidewalks on both River Gulf and Grand Boulevard all the way down to 19. We have completed brush collection. Has been completed and will be coming to City Council at your next City Council meeting on March 27th to complete the annual brush grinding project and awards. And it will be on your agenda on the 27th.
What is the annual brush grinding?
This is where we take all of the material that's been removed throughout the year through the storms, and we grind it and turn it back into mulch at that site.
And is it inappropriate to bring up the burning of this?
Yeah, this is just a simple report about that issue, and when we bring it up, you may want to wish to address other mechanisms for that issue. Tyndale and Oliver, as many of you know, we are undergoing traffic issues in our community, particularly with the opening of Whiskey Joe's. Traffic monitors will be placed in the area this week, actually on Thursday, to begin an in-depth study and analysis of our critical traffic patterns affecting the entire community. One of the first steps that we can to begin to address several different problems that are facing us in the very, very near future. Some of the problems are already here, as evidenced by recent traffic patterns associated with the opening of Whiskey Joe's. But we have several other projects that have a potentiality of coming forward that can drastically impact the residential portion of our community, mainly sections of Old Post and Bay. So we'll be beginning a traffic monitoring program. With respect to parking itself, there are several different issues involved in parking. As I spoke to you at the last council meeting, Whiskey Joe's has moved forward and has acquired a lease across from 19 that their employees are now utilizing to park in. That has released additional space, which was their original off-site parking site for employees on Treadway. That now becomes a valet operation, so it should give them some additional spaces with respect to their operation and parking. Gill Dogs is another issue with respect to parking, and they have submitted plans to our building department and with respect to redevelopment of their operation to include some additional parking issues. With respect to this additional site that they purchased, they already have submitted some plans to our building department, and we're awaiting their contractors to appear here to pick up the actual permits to do work at that site. Another leg of that three-pointed issue is the properties currently owned by the Kolokides family and the casino boats. I am in continuing ongoing discussions with the potentiality of using some additional sections of their property, and that is something that they themselves are discussing with their attorneys. Issue has become somewhat clouded because of the unfortunate circumstances last month with the water accident, a boat accident out on the water last month. So those conversations are taking place within their own organization. In conjunction with both our Public Works Department, Building Department, and our Police Department and Fire Departments, we are establishing new signage, new parking signage and street signage throughout the community to make it uniform so that no one misunderstands or is confused by where to park, how to park, when to park, and the consequences of parking illegally. And our police will be actively monitoring our waterfront to ensure safety of our visitors, the safety throughout the community, and in particular, our waterfront area. The former Whiskey River that has closed the owners have presented some remodeling plans to our building department, and it is our belief and hope that they will reopen soon. Basically, that's an initial report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
I have a quick couple here.
Yes, ma'am.
On the building department, you know, we look at Avila Bay, we look at Snug Cove. These are projects that have been on the books for years and years and years.
Correct.
So these aren't anything that's going to be upcoming soon.
But I'm afraid I have to disagree with you.
Then-
Avila Bay again just came in today with additional plans.
Okay.
So these projects are more alive than they have ever been. Let's
Okay,
put it that
so
way.
there's new interest.
Absolutely
Okay.
new interest. And that's part, again, that's part of the rationale behind our ongoing traffic studies and our reworking, reviewing, and of the original documents when they were approved historically, to ensure that they are current and take into consideration the current conditions here in the city.
So have you heard anything new about the construction on Washington Street? I mean, they've come in here several times saying to us that they're gonna do this, and this, and every time they walk out of here and do nothing.
The new construction on Washington
On
Street.
Washington Street.
That's
South
the
of
far,
Main.
the project, that's, yeah, Cody River, that's not, that project right now is dormant at this stage, so they have not, they're
Section
not
8
moving
housing,
forward.
that's not what we were told was gonna be there.
Speak.
It's not Section 8 housing, it was a single-family homes, but we haven't heard any updates on that project in a while.
Right, that Cody
Yeah.
River project is dormant at this stage.
Yeah. And just, you know, things that are going on. We used to do a citywide cleanup. Are there any plans to do that?
In what term, citywide cleanup?
We used to send out in the newsletter that we would do a citywide cleanup of like furniture and, you know, old grills and things that people tires and things that people don't typically get rid of. We've done it in the past. Whether or not it's something we can afford to do, I don't know. I'm sure it's
Did-
expensive to get rid of all those.
That,
items.
we really did, we used to do that way even back in the 90s.
Yeah.
In this community. At this point in time, we're sorely pressed because we have not received the vehicles yet that council approved, the large trucks that are necessary. So I will get with Mr. Hughes and we'll work out something, because that's something that is absolutely necessary, and we had hoped to incorporate that at your next workshop as part of the as one of the advantages to utilizing our building codes, our new building codes. So you'll be speaking about your wishes with respect to those building codes and providing 2 vehicles to help address some of those issues. One of them being the grant program that you'll be discussing, and the other one would be the city's general cleanup program that we'll reinstitute.
I would hope that we would do a better job this time around of announcing it, putting it in the newsletter, and also on our maybe on our bills.
Well, also on our other Nixle site.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly, ma'am.
Is that the new air conditioning unit we just put in, that loud horrible thing?
Chris?
That would be it.
And that needs to be repaired.
I'll have them look at it. It's just the blower. I'll have them see what.
My gosh. Thank
Yeah, it
you.
is
I
noisy.
believe it's a larger unit, and that's why.
Woo, okay.
They're more efficient. They do sound like that. Mine bedroom sounds like it's taken off.
Jeez.
But adding, Ms. Spalding mentioned this, and are you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'll answer any questions the council may have.
Okay, I have a couple. The one, she was speaking about the contracts. The one I was railing about, or the two, was the sidewalks and the Washington Street repavement or possible. In those contracts, which we approved, 36,000 and 46,000, whatever, there's still the contractor, who's that group? Florida Design Control.
Florida Design.
Right, we're giving them X amount of money. It was 36,000, 46,000, something like that, and I don't believe you were here. But in the contract, they are gonna subcontract out to FDEC Inc. or something. There's no number on that. They contract with two different subcontractors within their contractor, but there's no number on those, and I don't think that's appropriate for us to approve.
I think you're talking about the geotechnical engineering.
Yes.
That we have to do the geotech. Yeah.
Geotech and another one.
Yes.
One was gonna do the radar
Yes.
of the ground, and one was gonna do something.
They bill us separately, so the engineering firm will arrange for the testing to be done.
I understand that, but
And
I'm
then they'll
approving
bill us.
something I don't know what they're gonna bill us for, and I don't like that.
We work with, it's called PSI is the company we generally use for geotechnical testing, and we use them pretty frequently. We have an account with them. I don't know the exact cost of the test, but we are billed separately, not through that contract.
I understand it, but when this council approves a contract, that within that contract there is a subcontractor, it could be $500,000. We don't know. They're gonna call and ask. So I believe that before we do those again, that we shouldn't be approving contracts that have subcontracts within them that have no number. Okay. That was my one rant. The other thing that some of the citizens have brought to me are thoughts, and I think we should all think about it. Now, on the south side particularly, there are no boat ramps. And if we could find a place to put a neighborhood boat ramp, if you will, where you don't park there, you go launch your boat and take your boat and trailer home and get out on the water so they don't have to come all the way over here. It would be nice. I'm working on a couple of places. I know that the corner where Pier becomes, what is it? Pier becomes River Road or?
Sunset?
Sunset.
Sunset Land.
Pier becomes Sunset. Right on that corner is an old city launch. Now, it's I don't know if it's too dangerous, and that's something maybe the police chief could look at. But we own that land and we own that launch, and we could open it for the south side people, as long as we can patrol that they're not parking there. You know, they'd have to be towed if they were to park there, but it would give them a launch, and I think that, you know, they deserve that. Any thoughts?
The only thing I can think of is if I remember right, there was some questions over the ramp in front of Mr. Priest's house as to the ability to back either across or use the road as part of the backing operation to launch a boat. I think that might be problematic there.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that and see if that's even feasible.
It also causes more flooding. Because,
Well, Mr. Priest's
Yeah.
ramp did. This ramp now goes, it isn't on a seawall where you cut it out.
Right.
It's already there.
I don't believe that Mr. Priest's ramp should be in existence at all, but that's my own personal opinion and my feeling.
Right.
And that's a different issue that I'll be taking up with our city attorney for consideration for this council at some future date. And I don't, I'm not going to speak any further to that issue. And I feel that, the site that the mayor is referring to, we have purposely blocked it off because it is a hazard for someone to run right straight off. It's at the bend where Judy Christensen's house used to be.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why that has been abandoned. We would like to preclude an incident that occurred on Deidre, where that site has been closed off.
There's really nowhere to put it over there.
So it really is inappropriate at that site. We'll certainly look for some other sites, but you are 100% correct with respect to the added flooding issues, and the concerns about a ramp that's in existence further up the road. That's something we'll be looking at. I will be looking at anyway.
Yeah, I'm there all the time. My best friend lives right there in that corner home there across the street from
Right.
Priest.
That, yeah, okay. Are we done with that? Chris, do you know where I'm talking about, that the city owns part?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, if you would, take a look at it.
Yes, sir.
Now, council, any other comments? Shut up the mayor, Ms. Sewell.
Yeah. Okay. I was just wondering, on the noise issue that we were just discussing, have there been any complaints in the last year? How are we doing on that? I mean, they say that people are afraid to complain. I want to know if they are.
We went back a year from 3/13/17 to today. We've had 251 noise complaints. Now, it's not broken down specifically per restaurant, but we've had 251 noise complaints. It could be somebody's house party, you know. So, but people are still when they do complain. I mean, we've been out to the shark bites, and we do respond to them. I went out with the captain a few days later and spoke with her. So we are responding to them as they come in.
If I might, also we're altering that system. Excuse me. We're altering that system, so when those reports come in, we'll be able to categorize them specifically from what location, so that we can maintain a law with respect to a specific property and the problems that it may be causing within the area. So we'll have a better definition shortly. The system that has been in place most recently did not have that capability. They just listed a complaint. But we will be logging the specifics for each location so that we'll all have a better idea of if there is a singular problem with a singular organization or if there's any more generalized problem. But the police will continue to do their job, as you've heard. When a complaint is issued, to go out to verify and to speak with the owners as politely and officially as they can.
And we don't warn the establishment before we respond.
No, we've made that abundantly clear, Chief.
We don't do that.
Absolutely not.
Ms. Britton?
I don't know, Councilman Monroe, if you remember, didn't we put together a program a couple years back where, because we were having issues with the different restaurants and whatnot, that if they went out each time, after the first time, there was like a warning, and then each time the police had to go out, there was an actual fine? I'm pretty sure we passed that.
Yeah, memory serves. I think that was under Dave's Brown administration. You'd have to go back and look at that.
We'll be more than happy, Vice
just
Mayor,
look
to
into that
research it.
And that's one of the reasons, like, you know, I want to try and work with the people that, you know, own the restaurants, because I think it just gets them upset time in and time out. And I don't think you get anywhere by constant complaints and so on and so forth. They just have to understand that, you know, we want them to exist there, but we want them to exist friendly neighbors.
Peaceful.
And to make it work for all of us, you know.
We'll be more than happy to take a look at the rules and regs and come back with the response for you.
Are you Done, Ms. Sorrell?
Yeah, just,
Okay. Just a quick question, have we had any complaints on Whiskey Joe's music yet?
No, none at all. As far as noise, nothing.
Now, I kind of looked at that when I was there, and it is a novel approach. They're not using amplifiers per se. They're using amplifiers, but they're not box amplifiers like almost every band uses. This sound system is basically what it is. And it amplifies the sound, comes over the speakers, which the speakers are in the ceilings, go down. The ones on the beach tend to go straight up or just around that area. So it's kind of a novel approach. I don't imagine it was cheap to install, but you know, I think that's some of the problem too, is the basses tend to shoot it straight out. And if they're over the waterway, it's going to carry, and like we've discussed, the basses carry. I remember having this discussion during those noise ordinance meetings, and bass and drums are used, you know, for by the natives and everything else for the fact that they carried so far. So that is always a problem. And so it's just something we're going to have to keep working on. And we'll work together with the businesses. It's the best we can do, and try to create harmony among everybody. Well,
I just want to comment on that. Remember, we had that discussion where we were trying to come up with a way for some of the bands to, you know, change direction of their amplifiers and do different things, exactly like what they've done. And we had come up with that years ago, thinking that that was, and didn't we have some guy come here and talk to us about it? I think that was a specialist in amplified music, you know. So whatever they've done, if that's what's working, that's wonderful.
What you're witnessing with respect to Whiskey Joe's is the most modern iteration of sound amplification and sound deadening. The structure itself has special material in it. It's angled back from the water, and it's angled so that it does not pick up reflected sound off the building. The sound system is a linear system from, as the Vice Mayor spoke, from above and below. It still projects, but not in a absolute straight line. So it's the most modern iteration of sound deadening techniques.
What I think the Vice Mayor's talking about, when two magnetic fields meet in space, if they're of a similar frequency, they tend to cancel. So I'm sure that's the basis of these various systems.
Would this
Being
not
a
be something that
scientist of some sort.
I'm sorry, but would that be something that maybe we could include in future building, in those types of areas?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, part of the request that we have is, as you know, our parking requirements are absolute, as witnessed by Whiskey Joe's, but we certainly will make sure that they are included as an add-on, in particular if a organization comes forward looking for a variance from whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
And yes?
I've been out to Shark Bites, Whiskey Joe's. Of course, we know that the band faces in. I was at Guild Dogs today, and all their stages are facing into the building. They don't face out to the water. Same with Shark Bites. Actually, the back of the musicians are face the water. Their sound is concentrated into the building. So whatever sound is getting away or bouncing across the water, that's the problem that we're having. But all the establishments that I visited, the bands are facing into the building, not out to over the water.
So I'm going to break from Robert's Rules of Order here real quickly. Joel wants to speak, and this gentleman wants. I think we get all our business done during these discussions.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joel.
Mayor, City Council, Joel Smith, 7335 Candlelight Court. Mr. Lupo, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that vacant trailer park between Old Post and 19, did the city get that property? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Right there by Gill Dogs.
I certainly do. That was, the city made an effort almost 15 to 18 years ago when it was a trailer park. It was my intention at that time to condemn and take the trailer park and to acquire that property. Subsequently, future administrations did not see that, and it was purchased by the owners of Gill Dogs. We do not own that property.
Okay, well, that was gonna be my solution, is open that up for paid parking and for all that area, not just Gill Dogs.
Well,
I was under the impression somewhere that
at
the city.
that point in time, 18 years ago, 15 years ago, it was my intention to acquire, for the city's intention to acquire that property and to build a 4-story parking garage. It was to anticipate what's happening now, but unfortunately, none of that came to fruition.
Okay.
If I might, Mayor, I'm sorry. While you're standing there, I wanted to make a reference to the fact that just today, we've been working very diligently, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council have been working very diligently on addressing the issues at Orange Grove. And just this morning, I had a very fruitful conversation with the county about that exact same issue, and it is moving forward. So I would like to make sure that the people of Candlelight Court knows that we haven't forgotten. We know what we're trying to accomplish, and speaking with the county administrator and with his current representative, we are moving forward with those discussions, and they appear to be on a very friendly and amicable direction to finally make the commitment to Candlelight Court and Orange Grove.
What I'd like to see next time Orange Grove floods, we just include that with the dredging, and we just dredge a lake.
Straight down and out.
Very good.
No, but we do need to work on your flooding, for sure.
Yes, sir. I appreciate any help that we can get. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Sir?
Yeah, Dave, I'm talking and I can't shut up Gray again. About almost 40 years ago, the Over the Rhine Development Corporation was started in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was the statutory agent for that. It's still functioning. It's one of the more successful regentrification programs in the United States that I'm aware of.
What kind of program?
Regentrification, bringing the people back to the inner city and regentrifying it. I can't come up with a better term. I'm sure there is one. But about 20 years ago, I was talking with Mark Abbott about the need for brightening up the downtown area of Fort Ritchie. And I said what it needed was a sunset kind of place like they have on the beaches, various other places, or that type of draw. And when it came up about the bridge, my mind goes back to both Venice and wherever that is. Anyway, where they have the bridges that go across the river, and there are little businesses on the bridges, all right, which could be to go along with bicycling or walking, uniforms, bike repair, somebody who wants to rent out pontoon bicycles, that type of thing. And I believe that you could get the investors to pay for the bridge, which answers the question that he came up with before, who's going to buy it? If there was enough of a commercial atmosphere there, which doesn't take away from the community, but would add to it and inject a little charm into it, I think it could be something that would be attractive to an investor to do that. This is the body of neither a biker nor a hiker, so I have no skin in that game, or I don't want to invest in it, but I believe that there were people there who would enjoy being in that atmosphere.
Well, FYI, I'm like you. I'm not going to jog anywhere, but it will take golf carts on these trails.
There you go.
Okay. We'll stay in shape the old-fashioned way.
Agenda.
Where we're at. Well, do we have any other comments from the council?
A couple things real quick.
Yes, sir.
On Sunday, there was a major police event in the city. and I probably won't get a lot of information on this because it may still be under investigation. However, I wanted to commend our police department, especially Officer Russo, I know was involved in this, and I don't know who else was, so please extend our appreciation on to all that were involved in this. I know one officer was injured, and an ambulance came for him, but the person was nabbed in the end. It was a coordinated deal with the county police as well. They responded quickly. I mean, in a matter of a couple of minutes, we had squad cars all over the city. That person was not going to get into our city and cause any havoc. They got him. The dogs came out. I mean, everything happened, and it happened fast, and they had their man in custody, and congratulations and job well done on that one.
He was caught by the dog. That was a
Was that the
combined.
sheriff's dog?
Yeah,
We
the
don't-
sheriff's dog.
I'll loan you Agnes if you
Yeah,
ever need
well,
it.
yeah, she might help. She would help. But we called in the sheriff's office for assistance. It's not under investigation. He's under arrest. So it was a grand theft at Walmart. They were stealing TVs valued at over $600. When they were brought into the loss prevention room, one of them decided to leave and jump over the fence. There was 7 deputies that showed up, plus the dog from the sheriff's office. And a combined effort, we got him. The dog got him, and he's in jail. So things between the Port Richey Police Department and the sheriff's office couldn't be better. We've been pledged all kinds of cooperation from the sheriff. I've met with him, so I mean, things are going good. So thank you. I will pass it along to the crew that was
The
on.
officer that was injured, was he ours or?
No, he was the
county?
canine handler, and it was a branch that, when he went through it, where the dog was tracking, he pulled him through some brush, and the branch slapped back and hit him in the eye, but he was treated and released. He's fine.
Time to get another
Nice
German
job,
Shepherd.
guys.
Yeah, well, that's,
Yeah, I was gonna say, while we're on the subject, I'd like to congratulate, we have 3 officers that were promoted to sergeant. So we have Sergeant Russo, Sergeant Cox, and Sergeant Alou. Just wanna thank them for their service.
Right, no, good stuff.
Anything else? Anyone
Let's
else?
get to work.
I think you're double dipping, but go ahead.
As long as I don't triple dip.
We don't have a lot tonight.
I just want to ask a question.
Yes.
Sandra Spalding. Why don't we have a police dog anymore? We used to have one.
Maintenance.
well, he was
Why
retired.
can't it be answered? I know he was retired, why don't we get another one?
It's the expense, it's the expense of the training and the maintenance and the constant training. It depends on what you're gonna get. Is it a bite dog or a drug dog? The training could be several months. I mean, we have people that are willing to donate the money to purchase the dog, but it's the support that's needed for the dog that's pretty expensive.
But would it be an asset to our police department? I think so.
Yeah.
Sandy, 5,000 a year to feed the mutt. Go on, it is.
You know, when I was a young
We're going
girl, my father, we had a German Shepherd, most of my life we had German Shepherd dogs and that were attack trained. And our dog worked for our local police department when he was needed. So we would keep the dog, it was our family dog. But then, back then they used the collars on them and whatnot. And then when it was time for the dog to go to work, they just come pick up the dog and take him. You know, I'm sure that's probably not allowed, but, or there must be some kind of, you know, updating training and whatnot, but the dog actually lived in our home. I don't know if that's something that could be considered.
Again, no more expenditures.
Yeah, but see, whatever.
What are we now? Or
I'm
is
trying to get a
everyone?
dog.
I've been a little too loose this time. Let's go to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second. Any questions, any thoughts, anybody in the public? Bring it back to council, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Approved list of engineers, 7 and 11, page 7 and 11.
Yes, what we're doing is we're asking to add to the list of our engineers We desire to update that list and recommend addition to the current list is Robert Gonzalez, P.E. His credentials are attached, and we request council's concurrence.
What does he, which part of building?
This is part of the necessity to work with the state on the state's grant for the US 19 highway.
Okay.
That's his specialty.
Is his hourly rate in line with?
Yes, it is.
The engineers have successfully beat the doctors in breaking this up into little pieces of
Is this Panaca
specialty.
Bike Trail?
No, US 19 beautification.
Oh, the beautification part.
Right.
Okay. Without further ado, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve adding the new PE.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Anyone in the public want to speak to this? Back to council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Draft ordinance, city record rotation. Mr. Matthew, probably take that.
This is, excuse me, I made the changes to the wrecker ordinance. As you see, they're rather minimal. If you see the draft ordinance there, you see I made a change to make it 5 miles instead of an office within the city. Okay. I also changed it to business tax receipts since the ordinance was reflecting a more archaic term. As I said in my memo, in addition to that, I also, in section, the second page, you'll see highlighted would be an addition that the city manager shall be authorized to promulgate additional rules and regulations. Spoke with the police chief, spoke with the city manager and some others in the police department, just so everybody understands the present 8 or 9 towing companies we've been using. I think I have it in my memo here. The furthest one was 2.71 miles away as the crow flies. About 80%, and correct me if I make a mistake here, Chief, I think we've figured about 80% of them get towed to the yard here behind the building. So what we're referring to are those that are towed to other lots, okay? So not that the towing ordinance wouldn't apply to everybody, but where they're located is only important if they're not towing them here. So with regard to the other 20%, the vast majority of those are someone in a car accident that gets hurt, okay? And they go off in an ambulance, the car's sitting there, we have to call someone to impound it. Some people's cars are not drivable, and the police are gonna go say, hey, look, do you have a towing company? And if they say no, then we call somebody on the list, so that's the lion's share of those. Presently, you know, the reason I'm recommending that we add the city manager be authorized to promulgate additional rules is because I went and checked a lot of other cities' ordinances. Some are more detailed with more specific regulations, some have less. Ours is pretty much in the middle. It's been working rather well. Police are pretty good. We've had pretty good operators. And what this police department has been doing is they have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, which they follow the state rules, which I've given you a copy of, but there's more additional specific rules that are in here. Specifically, the most important ones are safety equipment, but more than that, as well as insurance, but more than that, if somebody's car gets towed that ends up in the hospital and they're released and they go looking for their car the next morning, they need to have a sign there in case there's no one at that lot where to call. And if there's no sign there, that's one of these small regulations. And then they have other regulations that they have to, you know, respond to somebody's call in a certain amount of time. We don't want to just dragging cars off to nowhere to be the problem. So there's all of these different rules and regulations. If we made these actually part of the code, they're changing them all the time, okay? But the problem is, being in the SOP, if someone violated one of these, the police couldn't, you know, penalize. If somebody makes a mistake, we give them a 30-day warning, then a 60-day warning. This isn't part of our law, so by making the city manager in charge of this, I can make this part of our law. So pretty much what Mr. Lupo and I, we started going through this. We're probably gonna be good with all of them. They're working for the chief. And as long as they're all okay, we'll just put on these approved by the city manager and away we go. All right? So, any questions?
I have
Councilwoman
need a
Brown.
motion.
I don't know that you can answer this, but the chief probably can. Is there a rotation that we use, or are we just using one company?
No, there's a rotation.
That's
There's a rotation. So, if somebody one of the tow truck companies was called out, now they would go to the bottom of the list and the list just keeps rotating. So they're not getting nobody's getting all the tows, no.
Okay.
Yeah, the dispatch is very careful about that. We've done a little bit of homework there. They're pretty good about it.
So I need a motion to
Motion to approve.
tweak.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll bring it back next meeting for first reading.
Okay. And that would bring us to someone I used to affectionately call old business, but I am no longer calling Ms. Sorrell old business. It was just her idea to put that on, and I appreciate it. So, my dear,
We're old business.
okay, you're no longer old business. You are Ms. Sorrell.
All right, one of the old business things is the workshop on the housing requirements and grants. I haven't gotten a call. Are we coming up with a date that we can have this workshop?
Yes, we're working on it now. We'll get a date for you.
Okay. And,
If I may, I purposely dragged, as you know, we have elections coming up. And to begin these discussions about very specific issues with Ms. Britton no longer being a member of this organization and a new council person being elected, I thought that it might be more relevant for the new council person to participate in that. So I'm trying to have that workshop after the elections on April 10th.
What are you gonna do with your Tuesday nights?
have a lot of fun.
So that's the rationale behind why you haven't been contacted, Ms. Sorrell.
Okay. And the other thing is on the police cars, have we got our new ones in yet?
No, I don't, the last check, they haven't even hit the assembly line.
Well, I thought they were outdated. We were gonna wait and get the next year's models.
No, these will be 218s. I know.
Do
That
you
was,
have a date on when they may be arriving?
No, I don't. We could do some checking tomorrow.
We are having some serious car issues.
Very serious, yeah. Yeah. The
What-
Dodges are
Yeah,
just
they're
not holding
dying.
up. Yeah, they're
All
they're
of
done.
them. Yeah.
Do we have a plan? We can't afford to buy 6 more cars or 8 more cars.
We're gonna, the next budget cycle, we're gonna look into the lease program, which would be a lease to own, no restriction on the mileage. And I've got an appointment set up for the lease agent next week to come in and give us some prices.
we'll be coming, the chief and I have been, and the staff have been working towards the upcoming budget. We're just beginning to start now and incorporate in the upcoming budget. In the upcoming budget would be the possibility of a 5-car lease to own within 5 years, no maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. There's all different issues. But that would be an option for the community and an opportunity for the community to finally get current with respect to their vehicles. And at that point in time, once the city is current with the vehicles, then it'd be a simple procedure to drop off the oldest and bring on a new one, and you'd always have a current fleet. And that's the issue, and that's what we'll be coming to in this coming budget process. I have to budget for it.
So how are we maintaining on the vehicles we've got right now? Is it?
We're repairing the ones we have. It's pretty sad. We have a 2006 Crown Victoria, and that's better shape than the newer Dodges. So the Dodges just were a failure. The city, the police department, they purchased them when Ford stopped making the Crown Vic, and that was the only vehicle to purchase. Now they have the one that looks like the Explorer. It's the Explorer, but it's called the Interceptor SUV.
Yeah,
And
we
that's
have a couple of
replaced it.
those, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We have 4 of them,
Those
and
look
they
good.
run
They look
real
really
well.
good.
So those are the 2 that we're gonna get in, and we're gonna stay with them. There's plenty of room in them for the equipment and so forth. So
How many cars do we have total?
top of my head, I want to say 15.
15?
About that, right? 15. We have 2 spares, but they're not, there's one that we can't use anymore. The head gasket is leaking, and the repair on a car is about $8,000, and the book value on a car is $2,300, so we're not getting that one fixed. So, yeah, no, it's not gonna be repaired.
You were hearing one of the laments of the cities that maintenance was never a high priority for the community in general, for the city in general. This facility was just completely painted from the exterior the first time since it's been constructed. All of our issues with respect to our water production and distribution system were maintenance issues. So this council and this administration is moving forward with modernizing and updating and properly maintaining every piece of equipment that we now bring online and that we purchase. And the purchase is not a random item. It is carefully researched and argumented amongst us before we come to council to preclude that. But we are establishing a legitimate, ongoing maintenance and purchasing program to help alleviate any problems in the very near future.
Mr. Luba, where do we advertise our bidding processes?
We use local journals, we use the internet, we use all of the sources available, the state.
Want me to answer that?
Sure.
Please.
We do that occasionally, but I ran into that problem when I was the city manager, and after doing some homework, and Dr. Martinez, correct me if I'm making mistakes here, but almost everyone uses BidNet.
Right.
It's national. It's on
BidNet?
BidNet.
BidNet.
It's a national company. It's free. Okay, we put our request for quotations, request for proposals on there. Jocelyn got trained. I think it was a day training. It's where everybody goes. 99% of all bids come out of BidNet now. So, yeah, it's the biggest. Everybody does it. BidNet's the national company's name. What's the local?
Florida Purchasing Group?
Florida Purchasing Group, yeah.
FloridaPurchasingGroup.com?
Yeah, you
I
can
want
look
us
on
to
it.
get more.
Google it, FloridaPurchasingGroup.com.
If we want bids on these dredges and things like that, I think we should tell them. I don't want to Google it.
They're so big that trade groups now try to harvest the information from them so they can charge people. It's free to us, as long as we take the course and everything. That's what everybody uses.
We don't know
anybody at a city that doesn't use it.
Website?
We have it posted on our homepage, but I can send you the link directly. I don't
Send
know it
me
off
the
the top of my head.
Okay.
That's how it's done now.
All right. So it is.
We're cutting edge.
I just felt pretty.
We intergalactically advertise for anything.
Yeah. I figured it was on Playboy, but I just thought we'd get more bids than we did on the last dredge, and that certainly would have been better for money. Okay. Any more?
Yes. I did have someone ask me about how the decision was made on which new sidewalks, the new sidewalk project that you have, how the decision was made on where it was going to be done.
It coincided with an effort to brighten up and clean up that whole section, given the new construction that occurred out there. Also, it was the ability to utilize funds for new construction of sidewalks only. We are precluded from using those funds for any other use other than new sidewalks. And rather than just let it be lost, we would rather utilize it for the advantage of that entire section of community. The people from the Washington section all the way down River Gulf, and then from Graham Boulevard all the way down Graham Boulevard to 19 to the bus stops. So we were giving access to that community, cleaning it up and brightening it up. And that's why that site was chosen. We are still looking at other sites for the next fiscal year, and if we come And if we find that we still have enough funds available, we'll come to council and request that council give us a list of areas that they would choose, would deem reasonable for new sidewalks. Again, new sidewalks only, not
New sidewalks on.
only.
Okay. And, there's been some complaint about Post Road, the condition of the street. Do we
Old
have
Post?
any plans, Old Post Road?
What section?
I'm assuming that it's the one from Bay Boulevard down towards the businesses.
Yeah,
We do constant repairs, but I don't believe we have anything scheduled for the repaving of Old Post. Back when they did a water main upgrade at the corner of Miles and Old Post, there is a dip there that we will be addressing. We've done it 2 years ago, but it needs to be readdressed again. I believe the similar thing is going on as at Washington. The base underneath the road is deteriorated. The water table doesn't help it at all.
Here's the other place they may be thinking of is after you go past Treadway, you know, you go that little kind of like angles into 19 behind Short Stack.
Behind the restaurant.
Correct.
Right past the new parking lot.
They keep telling me there's a pothole there, but I can't find it, so.
I'll go by there tomorrow
All right.
too.
There's a couple.
Okay. Jerry?
And in expectations of the rainy season, they say that the culverts and the swales on Old Post Road need to be attended to. Are they on part of your schedule?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
That's all I need to know. That's it.
I have one last thing to bring. I know we're working on designing Nick's Park, new design.
Redesign, correct. In fact,
Can we be kept up to date? Because I know I'm not gonna agree with your redesign, but, then they're gonna have to, I want at least a vote on it.
yeah, in fact, the revisions to the plans have been submitted, and we're preparing to move forward with the project. We're looking at those revisions right now. Mr. Muse is working on some potential redesigns for both.
You're redesigning the redesign?
The park section, not the ramp section, sir. They're two different issues. Okay, so, as soon as we have them submitted to us, we'll be more than happy to share them with
I want to get to
council.
final before this council looks at it and says,
I'll be more than happy to bring to council, to have council just take a look at it.
absolutely need to look at it. I think it should be voted on by us. Okay. Then with that, I quit being antagonistic. Anybody has a motion, I will accept it.
Hold on, just
Okay.
before we quit. How are we coming with the dredging spoils?
We have-
Make any movement with the spoils yet?
No, we have not moved the spoils at all. It's resigning at our DMMA site. It will be moved as part and parcel of the bidding for channels 1 and 18. Then it'll be relocated.
Just quickly here, I had a short conversation with Curtis Franklin. I have some friends over in Newport Richey. They're involved in their dredging attempts and things with the city. And they were quite shocked when it came time to move the dredge material because it got quite expensive very quickly. So with them kind of leading the way, Curtis said it might be advisable. It would be a little expensive, but if we were to get a sampling done on our spoils.
Already done, sir.
We're done. We're good. No, there's nothing toxic, as Mr. Luper said.
Okay, in that case, he said that if it doesn't have heavy metals and that type of thing, there may be more cost-effective ways to move it. So you might want to get with him. And he also suggested that you confer with the officials over at Newport Richey, being that they've been there, they can kind of tell us where their pitfalls were. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. We'll be
Thank
more than
you.
happy to do
I'm working
that.
on that as well, and with Mr. Lupo, so hopefully we'll have that under control. I do have any motions.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.